The heartbeat had been flickering on the screen in black and white. At least, that's what I thought I was staring at. But I wasn't. I was staring at paperwork. At the name printed neatly at the top of the file. My husband's name. The doctor's hand froze. Her smile disappeared. Her eyes moved from the paper to my face, then back again. Slowly, deliberately, she reached forward and turned off the monitor. Just like that. Mid-exam. As if someone had pulled the plug on my entire life. "Mrs. Hale," she said quietly, her voice barely holding together. "I need to speak with you privately. Right now." She didn't wait for my response. She led me down the hall, into her office, closed the door, and locked it. Locked it. My heart began slamming so hard I could hear it in my ears. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could see was one terrifying thought looping over and over in my head. "Something is wrong with the baby." Then she said the words that collapsed my world. "You need to leave your husband today. Before you go home. And you need to call a divorce lawyer first." I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. "What?" I said. "Why? We're married. We're happy. We're having a baby together. This doesn't make any sense." Her face had gone completely pale. "That's exactly the problem," she said. "What I'm about to show you will change everything you believe about your marriage. My name is Elena Wright. I'm 32 years old. I work as a marketing director at a boutique firm in Connecticut. And I come from what people politely call old money. My grandmother, Margaret Wright, passed away 5 years ago and left me her estate, a trust worth just over $2 million, along with the historic Wright family home. 5 generations of women had lived under that roof. Loved there. Raised children there. I never flaunted it. I worked. I built my own career. I drove a decade-old Subaru and bought my coffee from the same corner cafe every morning. That inheritance wasn't my identity. It was my safety net. But it made me a target. I just didn't know it yet. I met Daniel Hale 4 years ago at my family's annual charity gala. That event had been hosted by the Wrights for decades. That year, I was standing at the bar trying to escape a man who'd asked about my finances within 3 minutes of meeting me. Then Daniel appeared. Tall. Polished. Easy smile. He asked what I was drinking. Made a joke about the awful jazz band. Didn't mention money once. He said he was a financial advisor who'd gotten a last-minute invite from a colleague. Claimed he had no idea who the Wright family even was. Looking back, that should have been my first red flag. A financial advisor who doesn't research the host family of a major charity event is like a chef walking into a cooking competition saying, "Oh, we're cooking?" But I was exhausted by obvious gold diggers. And here was a man asking about my favorite books instead of my bank account. We dated for a year. Daniel was attentive. Thoughtful. He remembered tiny details I didn't even remember sharing. He insisted on paying for everything. He made me feel chosen. My mother, Helen, saw through him instantly. After meeting him once, she pulled me aside and whispered, "That man's smile doesn't reach his eyes. Something's wrong with him." I accused her of being paranoid. Overprotective. Jealous. We fought constantly. Eventually, we stopped talking. 2 years of silence between me and the woman who raised me. All because I chose to trust my husband over my own mother. Spoiler alert. She was right. We married after a year. A beautiful ceremony at my grandmother's estate. Daniel cried during his vows. Full tears. Promises of love and protection. Looking back, those weren't tears of joy. They were tears of relief. The long game had worked. After 2 years of trying for a baby, we went to a fertility specialist. The diagnosis shattered us. Severe male factor infertility. Natural conception was essentially impossible. Daniel cried in the car for 20 minutes. Apologized over and over. I held him and promised we'd figure it out together. What I didn't know was that he wasn't grieving. He was recalculating. We chose IVF with ICSI. Daniel insisted on handling everything, researching clinics, paperwork, logistics. I thought he was being supportive. The first cycle failed. I couldn't get out of bed for days. The second cycle worked. 2 pink lines. I cried. He held me. Talked about nursery colors and baby names. Then, casually, he suggested I update my will. I thought it was practical. I had no idea he was already counting my grandmother's money as his own. 4 months pregnant, things began to shift. His phone stayed face down. New passwords. Late-night calls. Hotels near home. Restaurant receipts for 2. Every question I asked was turned back on me. You're hormonal. You're paranoid. Don't be one of those wives. I apologized for doubting him. That's how good he was. Then came the ultrasound. A different doctor. A locked door. And a folder full of truth. Her sister worked at our fertility clinic. 3 weeks earlier, she'd broken down in tears and confessed everything. My husband had bribed clinic staff. Switched sperm samples. Used donor sperm without my knowledge. Paid $50,000 to frame me for adultery. His plan was meticulous. After the baby was born, he'd request a DNA test. The results would show he wasn't the father. Medical records would be altered to suggest natural conception. I would look like a cheater. Our prenup had an infidelity clause. $500,000. Plus my inheritance. Plus my reputation. I sat there, numb. Then something cold and steady settled in my chest. He thought I was weak. He was wrong. I didn't confront him. I smiled. I planned. I hired an investigator. A divorce attorney. A prosecutor. Every lie unraveled. Gambling debts. Embezzlement. An affair with his assistant. A previous wealthy woman he'd tried and failed to trap. I called my mother. She didn't say I told you so. She asked what I needed. 6 weeks later, I threw a baby celebration at my grandmother's estate. 50 guests. Champagne. Flowers. Witnesses. Daniel walked into his own downfall smiling. He suggested the DNA test. In front of everyone. I took the microphone instead. And told the truth. Every detail. Every document. Every lie. The police stepped forward. Handcuffs clicked. And my husband, the man who thought he'd won, was led away in silence. He was denied bail. Convicted. Sentenced. The trap he built closed around his own neck. My baby was born healthy. Loved. Safe. Family isn't DNA. Family is who stays. And I stayed. The police car disappeared down the long gravel drive, its tires crunching over stones my grandmother had laid decades earlier. And just like that, the noise stopped. No music. No chatter. No champagne glasses clinking. Only silence. 50 people stood frozen in the garden, staring at the empty space where my husband had been moments ago. Some looked shocked. Some horrified. Some embarrassed to have ever applauded him. I didn't cry. Not then. My mother slipped her arm around my shoulders, grounding me. You did the right thing, she said softly. I nodded, but my body hadn't caught up to reality yet. I felt hollow. Like the adrenaline had burned everything out of me and left ash behind. Guests began leaving quietly. No hugs. No gossip. Just stiff nods and murmured apologies. Daniel's parents left without saying a word. His mother was crying so hard she couldn't stand upright. His father looked 20 years older than he had that morning. By sunset, the garden was empty. The tents came down. The quartet packed up. The champagne went untouched, and I stood alone in the house Daniel had wanted more than he ever wanted me. That night, I slept in the guest room. Not because his side of the bed hurt, but because I didn't want to lie where he had planned my destruction. The next morning, reality arrived with paperwork. Police statements. Protective orders. Asset freezes. Daniel's accounts were locked within hours. His firm released him before lunch. By evening, his face was already circulating online, not as a financial advisor, not as a devoted husband, but as a fraud suspect. By the third day, the gambling creditors started calling. Not me. His parents. They wanted answers. They wanted money. They wanted someone to blame. Daniel had promised them everything would be taken care of. Now he was sitting in a holding cell, and the illusion had collapsed. I learned something strange that week. When a man like Daniel falls, people don't rush to help him. They rush to distance themselves. Friends vanished. Colleagues stopped returning calls. Even the assistant he'd risked everything for disappeared completely. She left the state within 48 hours. No goodbye. No loyalty. Love built on lies evaporates the second the truth arrives. The court proceedings moved faster than I expected. Fraud. Conspiracy. Embezzlement. The fertility clinic scandal alone was enough to end him. Add the stolen client funds, the falsified records, the bribes, there was no version of this where he walked free. Daniel tried to contact me once. A handwritten letter. 3 pages of apologies that never once said I'm sorry for hurting you. Only I didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't read past the second paragraph. My lawyer shredded it. Pregnancy does strange things to grief. I wasn't just mourning a marriage. I was mourning the version of my life I had believed in. The safe future. The shared milestones. The partner I thought I had. Some nights, I woke up reaching for someone who had never truly existed. Other nights, I felt my baby move and remembered why I had survived. My mother moved back into the house temporarily. We cooked together. Talked late into the night. Sometimes about Daniel. Sometimes about everything except him. She never once said I warned you. Instead, she said things like, "You trusted because you loved. That's not a flaw. I should have fought harder to stay close to you." We healed quietly. Not perfectly. But honestly. Daniel took a plea deal. He avoided trial in exchange for cooperation and restitution. It didn't save him much. 7 years. No early release. No financial career afterward. The judge called his actions premeditated cruelty disguised as intimacy. I felt nothing when the sentence was read. No victory. No satisfaction. Just closure. The baby arrived on a rainy Tuesday morning. Strong lungs. Strong heartbeat. When the nurse placed my child in my arms, the world narrowed to one truth. Nothing Daniel did touched this moment. Nothing he planned could poison this love. I named my child Margaret after my grandmother. A woman who built a legacy without manipulation. A woman who survived quietly and fiercely. Sometimes people ask if I'm angry. I'm not. Anger ties you to the person who hurt you. I chose freedom instead. Daniel wanted my money, my reputation, my future. What he gave me instead was clarity, and strength, and a life built on truth. 7 years pass faster than you expect. Not because life becomes easy, but because you stop counting the days you survived. Margaret is in school now. She has my eyes, my mother's stubbornness, and a laugh that fills rooms without asking permission. The house feels alive again. Not preserved. Not haunted. Lived in. Sometimes people ask if I ever think about Nathan. I do. But not the way they imagine. I don't replay the betrayal. I don't rehearse the pain. I think about how carefully he planned. And how completely it failed. He wanted money. Control. A future built on deception. What he gave me instead was truth. And truth has weight. It doesn't disappear when people leave. When Margaret asked once where her father was, I didn't lie. I said, "Some people don't know how to love without hurting others." She thought about that. Then she nodded and went back to coloring. Children understand more than we think. I never remarried quickly. Healing isn't a race. But love found me again, slowly, quietly, in conversations without agendas, in hands that didn't grasp, in someone who never once asked what I owned. That's how I knew. The Carter house still stands. Sunlight through the same windows. Footsteps in the same halls. But the legacy is different now. It isn't about money. It's about choosing truth when lies are easier. Nathan was released eventually. I don't know where he went. I don't need to. Some people exit your life permanently the moment they lose access to your silence. If this story has an ending, it's this. Survival isn't loud. It doesn't clap for itself. It simply continues. Honest, steady, and unafraid. And that is more powerful than revenge could ever be.